I'm not used to seeing you.
Last time I did, we didn't need it, so I didn't do it this time.
No, that's fine.
We're going to go ahead and get started, please.
I mean,
The meeting of the Louisiana Tax Commission is hereby called to order. The meeting is being held at the offices of the Louisiana Tax Commission at 1051 North Third Street, Suite 225, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The date is Wednesday, July 9th, 2025. The time is 9 a.m. Please call the roll.
Chairman Roussel.
Here.
Commissioner Leone.
Here.
Commissioner Romick.
Here.
Commissioner Guidry.
Here.
Commissioner Frazier.
Here.
5 present and a quorum.
Okay. I think we're going to deviate from the agenda.
Yeah,
Drew?
Mr. Chairman, if we can take up item 8, the consideration of the assessor's motion sanction filed by the assessor of the Dale Bureau matter. So all the people on YouTube can hear me. Chairman, if we can take up item 8 on the agenda, Mr. Williamson is here on behalf of the assessor who filed the motion for sanctions against the taxpayer. Just procedurally, I'm sure Mr. Williamson will say this as well. Notice was given to the taxpayer to appear for the hearing, given an opportunity to respond to the assessor's motion. Chandrika can confirm, but we have not received any written response or opposition to the assessor's motion. And as far as I know, nobody is here on behalf of the taxpayer.
Do we need to make a motion to deviate from the agenda, or we can just take that item first? Okay. Okay, you can go ahead.
Good morning, and thanks for letting me jump the line. I just have a BTA hearing at 9:30, so trying to squeeze it all in. But so like Drew said, we're here on a motion for sanctions against the taxpayer Del Segura. About a couple of months ago, early May, I was here on 2 motions to compel for Mr. Segura's failure to respond to 2 separate requests for discovery. And at that hearing, the motion was granted. Both motions were granted, and you issued an order commanding Mr. Segura to comply with our discovery request by June 2nd, or June 6th, sorry. And he did not, and he still has not. And so when a taxpayer fails to comply with the motion to compel an order on a motion to compel, the next step is to move for sanctions under Code of Civil Procedure Article 1471. And one of the permissible sanctions under that article is to ask for the court to simply dismiss the case, which we are asking for here. And it also has a mandatory expenses provision, says whether or not you grant any additional relief, that the court shall award reasonable expenses, including attorney's fees. So we're also asked for a very reasonable amount of $1,000. The dismissal and $1,000.
So, and just to confirm, there's no representative of the taxpayer is not present, anything. Okay, any questions from the commission?
Chairman, I just rose. I'll just represent. I deal with this in civil matters all the time. It's very routine. If you send discovery requests to a party, they fail to respond, you file your motion to compel, you get your order. If the party continues to fail to comply with your order, it would be appropriate to take additional action, including dismissal of their appeal.
Any questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the assessor's desire to dismiss this and award attorney's fees up to $1,000.
Have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is granted.
Thank you. And Mr. Williamson will prepare an order and circulate that to me. I will provide that to you all to execute at our next meeting.
We'll go back to old business now.
Mr. Chairman, we're going to go back to item 3 under old business. Staff was instructed to place consideration of a decision in the appeal of Marmac LLC, docket number 23-22054-004 through 008. If the commission is prepared, that matter was taken under advisement, a motion can be made to enter a decision if the commission is so inclined.
Okay. Do I hear a motion? Or do I, any questions by commission members? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to grant the taxpayer values, in the, cases, docket numbers 23-22057-004 through 23-22047-008.
Commissioner
Mr.
Frazier.
Romick and myself were not present for this appeal, so let the record show that we're not going to vote on this matter. I don't know if we need to do roll call. I can just say, is there any objection to the motion?
Yeah, all we need is through signatures, so Commissioner Romig and the chairman will be abstaining. So you will need unanimous, but it's only as there's no objection to Commissioner Frazier's motion, just to clarify, to adopt the values that were requested by the taxpayer.
That's correct.
Okay. Any,
Resale did not vote on this matter. The next item is the approval of minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes from the meeting of June 11th, 2025.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Chandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today, we have a total of 1,346 change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 1,319 and place 27 in pending status. Staff requests approval of these change orders.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the 1,319 change orders and place 27 in pending status for reasons given by staff.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Chandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Commission. Today, we have a total of 5 prior pending change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve all 5. Staff requests approval of the prior pending change orders.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the 5 prior pending change orders as presented by staff.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Chandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today, we have a total of 26 tax sale cancellations, 7 in Rapides Parish due to being erroneously sold and duly assessed, and 19 in St. Tammany Parish due to being erroneously sold and duly assessed. Staff requests approval of 26 tax sale cancellations.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the 26 tax sale cancellations.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is adopted. Thurn?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Michael Mathern, Administrator for Louisiana Tax Commission. This morning, I'm seeking your approval of the statewide personnel policy number 3 regarding the Governor's Executive Order JML 25-048. In April, the Governor put together the executive order, which was pretty straightforward. It prohibits telework for state employees that work under the executive branch for the state, of which we are. It also provided additional instructions to agencies such as ours that the Commissioner of Administration would put together a packet which would provide guidelines for agencies such as ours to adopt a telework policy. I've emailed to you the telework policy which Commissioner Barra has assembled and asked for your adoption. The telework policy will allow telework for our field appraisers and field appraisers only. Other employees will be 5 days a week in the office. So I'm seeking your approval for this statewide policy.
And just for the commissioners' benefit, we are following what every other state department in the executive branch is doing. So any discussions, any questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve as requested Executive Order number JML 25-048.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
The next item is the consideration of the approval of the Orleans Parish CY 20225 first quarter supplemental tax roll for tax years 2020 through 2022 through 2025. Ms. Marvel?
Good morning, Commissioners. Tanisha Malvo on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Staff has received the tax rolls for first quarter calendar year 2025, tax years 2022 through 2025 for Orleans Parish. This supplemental roll includes the electronic roll, the TC 33s, the millage reports for those years. The quietus and the Louisiana Legislative Auditor's approval letter was already provided when the original 2025 tax roll was approved earlier this year. Please note, or well, actually in December of 2024. Please note that the LTC values, public service and bank and insurance values did not change. The assessor has provided an affidavit attesting that the information contained in the supplemental tax roll is correct and that all affected taxpayers were timely notified. The reasons for these supplemental rolls are as follows. For real property, the reasons being either canceled and or adjusted homestead exemption and or age freeze due to a deceased owner, or an application was issued in error or filed incorrectly. Additionally, there were some properties that were erroneously omitted from the tax roll. And there was one property where they needed to correct the land and improvement values due to the expiration of the pilot agreement. For personal property, the reason being erroneously omitted from the tax roll, and there was one pipeline company that had incorrect pipeline transportation tables that were used to assess for the 2025 assessment year. Upon further review, staff requests approval of the Orleans Parish supplemental tax rolls for 2025 first quarter tax years 2022 through 2025.
Any questions from the commission? Hear none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I call for a motion to accept the approval of the Orleans Parish CY 2025 first quarter tax supplements for tax years 2022 through 2025.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Ms. Margaret. We'll move on to appeals.
Like I've been up here a lot. Good morning. You've probably gone through this exercise before, but if you have not, we swear in all the witnesses at the beginning of our appeal hearing. So if you'll be testifying in any of the appeal matters on today's docket, I'll have you stand up at your chair. I will administer an oath to all of you globally, but then I will indicate to you individually to affirm the oath and to state your name. Appraisers, I will deal with you in a moment. So please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. You all may have a seat. Appraisers, same exercise. Looks like you all have your video cameras on. Unmute it. If you will raise your right hands, I'll administer an oath. I'll indicate to you individually to affirm the oath and have you state your name. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Cody?
Cody Lowry, I do.
George?
George Wallace, I do.
Randy?
Randy Harrington, I do.
Danny?
Daniel Blanchard, I do.
Luke?
Luke Brewer, I do.
And Josh?
Joshua Laverne, I do.
Great, thank you. Very good, Chairman.
Okay, the first appeal we'll take up this morning is the appeal of Plethos Development LLC versus Assessor LG Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 24221-71074. And that's item F on your briefing sheet.
Looking for the taxpayer. If it please the commission, the assessor's office and the taxpayer came to an agreement. I was looking for, I saw earlier The agreement that we came to was to set the land at 587,500, building at 912,500 for a total fair market value of 1.5 million. But I don't see Ms. Zella May.
Could you read that off one more time?
Yes, sir, I apologize. It's 587,500 for the land, 912,500 for the building, for a total fair market value of 1.5 million even. She was here.
Here earlier, I think she left.
I think she left. I told her we had to read it into the record, but
I mean, Chairman, your prerogative, I mean, Mr. Alvarez has testified under oath, but he reached an agreement with the taxpayer who was present. I think I saw her this morning. So you can accept the consent. If the taxpayer later says that's not what I represented, then we can do something different.
I'm joking. Okay, do I hear a motion? Any questions from the commission to the assessor's office? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I call for a motion to accept the agreement from the assessor to the taxpayer of a total of 1.5 million, which is 587,500 for land, improvements $912,500, which is a total of 1.5 million.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we'll take up the appeal of John Peter Laborde Jr., docket number 24221-76029. That's item J on your briefing sheet.
Stephen Parker on behalf of John Peter Laborde Jr., the property owner of 4 Newcomb Boulevard, which is located in the University Uptown section of the city. I mentioned to someone earlier that I'm actually here sort of as a personal favor to Peter, who in 2022 purchased his father's home at 4 Newcomb Boulevard. Peter's father, John Laborde, bought the home in 1958 for $52,000. And at the time, my friend Peter was 3 years old when he moved to the home. And he and his 4 siblings grew up in that house, and he has a strong emotional connection to it. When his father died in 21, Peter bought out his siblings once his father's estate was settled. He bought out his siblings and purchased the home for approximately $1.6+ million. The assessor's office is assessing the property for $1,596,000. In the prior year, in 2024, for the reappraisal, they had proposed assessing it for $2,067,900, but they agreed after we settled, they agreed to reduce the value to $1,596,800. Now, I did bring with me photographs of the property, which I think are important, because when Peter agreed to a price and bought out his siblings in the home, he was assuming the house was in good condition. And as it turned out, it was not in good condition. It was not even in fair condition. It was actually less than poor condition, which is the reason why he made the decision to file a demolition permit and demolish the house. The problem was the HDLC interceded, and they told him, you cannot demolish the house, not without preserving a set of 5 dormer windows in the front of the house that were just above the flat roof line. There are some people in the city that have disregarded the HDLC's decisions and demolished the homes anyway and suffer the consequences. Well, he decided not to do that. The benefit of hindsight tells us that he would have been better off doing it. because in order to demolish the home, he had to build a structure inside of the structure to support the dormer windows, which actually created a light well into the foyer of the house. So at great expense, he created a structure inside of the structure to support the roof, the flat roof, and also the dormer windows, and then proceeded to demolish the rest of the house. Originally, the house was typical of homes in the neighborhood. It was basically a one-story home on a basement. And typical of many houses were built in the early 1920s. The primary living level of the home was on the second level, and most people entered their homes through the basement. In this case, the basement had a finished ceiling height of less than 9 feet. A portion of that basement was conditioned and used as a playroom for the children. Portions of it was not conditioned, and it was used for dead storage. And then there was a pool cabana and the such. So it was his intention to, and the photographs will bear this out, was to get a shoring company to come in and lift the main second floor living level up, demolish the basement, which he did, put the home down on a concrete block foundation wall. Well, after he had done all of that, then the decision was made. They realized that the home was so far gone that they had no choice but to demolish it. And the issue that I have with the assessment and the assessor's office is that they do not take any of that into consideration whatsoever. They don't take into consideration any of the demolition. Not only was the basement demolished, but also additions that were made to the home over the 63 years that Mr. LaVoy lived there. Those were taken down. They were scraped off. I mean, and if this house had been completely demolished and the lot had been scraped, then I'm not sure we'd be having this conversation, and it would not have been necessary to file the appeal. But the assessor's office has given no consideration to that whatsoever, and certainly not the same consideration that, say, for example, the property owner at 1441 State Street was given when they bought a home in 21, same timeline, demolished the home, paid 3 times more for the lot than the value at which it's being assessed. And their home has been, that property is not, the improvements are not on the tax roll and have not been on the tax roll for the last several years, will not be on the tax roll next year because the home is still not complete. Peter Laborde and his wife hope to be in their home in January of next year. That's how long this has taken, although they started working on the home in the summer of 23. And with the commission's permission, I would like to distribute some photographs that I would like to discuss. Great. The assessor, I'm going to give them to the assessor. Sure.
That's fine.
These, would you pass one to them and then the rest of the commission, please? All of the photographs that I'm distributing today and that are in the tax commission staff's appraisal are photographs and appraisals that I have provided both to the assessor's office and also to the staff appraiser.
Okay.
The handout is a total of 5 photographs. The first photograph, thank you, is the home as it appeared in 2012, which is the last time that I appealed the property for Peter's father, John Laborde, because the assessor's office had doubled the square footage for no apparent reason. And so we were able to settle that. So what's most significant about the photograph on top is this is the way in which the home appeared prior to Mr. Laborde Sr.'s death. And you can see above the flat roof line, you can see the dormer windows in question. And those are the dormer windows that the HDLC said you have to preserve. Now, again, this was very typical. You can see there's an earthen berm at the front of the house, and then there's semicircular stairs going up to really the front door, which is actually on the second level of the home. And then the finished basement was underneath. You can see a carport. That was the main entrance for ingress and egress into the home. That was the entrance that they used most often. The second photograph is the photograph of the home after they had scraped everything off the front and then had the shoring company come in and lift the house in the air and demolish the basement. Now, this occurred in the summer of '23. And you can actually see on the second photograph where the contractor had gone in and started replacing the rotten wood, which was basically the sills were rotted out, the joists were rotted out. They did a lot of work, and this was before they even demolished the house, when they realized that the house was too far gone. The third photograph is not a front elevation, but more of a sort of 3/4, 1/4 elevation that shows where they had torn off other rooms to the house. The square footage of the house was declining throughout the entire process.
Yeah.
The back elevation of the house, you can see where they tore rooms off. You can still see the steel beams supporting the house. And then the last photograph, you can see through the house because you can tell that they demolished the structure that was there. Now, I wouldn't advise someone to renovate a house this way because it's been a colossal financial disaster. And to say that it's been expensive is an understatement. But what we asked the assessor's office last year to consider, and I had this conversation with Mr. Almaraz, I said, for purposes of discussion, let's assume that maybe there are $100,000 worth of improvements on the property. I was more than willing to make that concession because it was not a total and complete demolition. So if you wanted to give a value to the dormer windows and a portion of the flat roof, then $100,000. Well, no consideration whatsoever. Now, I would also like to say that at the same time all of this is going on, the home at 1441 State Street, which I mentioned earlier in my remarks, it was purchased in July of '21 for $1.5 million. The couple that purchased the home demolished the house, and they have been building a new house ever since then. And those improvements came off the tax roll in 2024. They were off the tax roll in 2025, and they will be off the tax roll in 2026 because the people will not have taken occupancy or obtained an occupancy certificate prior to the tax lien date. And I would like to pass this handout out as well, with your permission, Mr. Chairman. Okay. I'd like to hand that to Mr. Almaraz as well. Thank you. Now, Mr. Almaraz is going to testify that they assess construction in progress, or construction work in progress. And according to Keen Miller, an assessor hasn't done that in Louisiana since 1913, with the possible exception of an assessor in 2016. Thank you. And it's been the policy of the assessor, despite their protestations, that you do assess work in progress. And as a matter of matter of course and as a matter of policy, I can not only tell you that they don't do that, I can prove that they don't do that. And I did so with the example of 1441 State Street. In addition to that, there's another home on Newcomb Boulevard with the address of 27 Newcomb Boulevard. Now, all of the evidence that I'm handing out is rebuttal testimony. Russell, can I hand that to you, please? Sure. This is a home that was typical of 4 Newcomb Boulevard in that it sat on a finished basement, and the owners of this home recently raised the house and built out a true first story. And again, there was no increase in improvement assessment, not in 23, not in 24, not in 25, and I doubt there will be in 26. May I pass this out, please?
27.
This is, okay, well, this is evidence of
Yeah, but
the
if
fact.
they don't have it, you can't submit it.
Okay. Well, I wanted to introduce it because it's rebuttal testimony. Understood. Understood. Okay. But not only do they not assess residential improvements in progress, they don't do that for commercial improvements either. And there's no better example of that than the Topgolf sort of 504 facility. They have not assessed the improvements there in years, and the first improvements were constructed in 2019 before the pandemic. And even the improvements, now it's finished, it's operating, they haven't assessed any improvements. They're assessing the land for maybe $7 a square foot. It's almost 9 acres in the middle of the city. And it's hard to understand why they won't assess it. And, you know, for 20 years I lived downtown and I paid $1,000 in property taxes every other week. And I don't think that it's fair for people that live and work in the city who pay their fair share of the property taxes should have to subsidize other people's property taxes simply because some people haven't done their jobs. And so I would ask you to please consider an improvement assessment for 4 Newcomb Boulevard for John Peter Laborde Jr., an improvement assessment, not assessment, but value of $100,000. And that would create a total value of $781,000 for both the land and the improvements.
Thank you. We'll hear from the New Orleans Assessor's Office.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners. Russell Amros for the Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. I guess just to discuss the property in question, this property is a single-family home on Newcomb Boulevard. The Board of Review reduced the value from $2 million to $1,596,000 as we had an agreement with the taxpayer. The exterior has a new roof, has been painted. The interior was in the process of a complete renovation. The property was inspected, interior and exterior, measured the square footage. We came up with a value for our appraisal of $1,620,000, which was slightly higher than the Board Review value that we agreed to with the taxpayer. The commission came out with a value of $1,850,000. And we're asking to uphold the Board Review's value as we agreed with the taxpayer at that time. I guess to address the exhibits from the taxpayer, you can see on page, starting on page 10, we have photos of the property, interior and exterior. The photos provided by the taxpayer are not relevant because that's not the existence of the property as it is. The condition has been completely restored. It's almost 100% complete renovation. So the framework is not accurate. These are old photographs. It's been an interior inspection by our office as well as the taxpayer. If you like, I can address to the character assassination done by the taxpayers representative, but I don't think we really need to go into that.
We don't need to go into that.
And our policy is, despite what the taxpayer says, we value property. We value property as ongoing construction. One property that has been brought to the attention, the 1441 State Street, is not a citywide policy. I can't explain why this property hasn't had an increase. I could speculate, but it's not a policy of the assessor's office not to put property on. This could be a mistake on our part and not an office-wide policy. So we are expecting or we are pleading for the commission to uphold the Board of Use value, as we're expecting the property owner to have the property completely renovated in the future and will be valued as a complete renovation later on when the certificate of occupancy has been provided.
Thank you. We'll hear from the LTC appraiser, Josh.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Joshua Laverne, LTC appraiser. I inspected and appraised the property at 4 Newcomb Boulevard. The sales comparison was the only applicable approach that I used. The approach produced a value of $1,850,000, with $681 attributed to the land and $1,169,000 to the improvement.
Thank you, Josh.
You're
Questions
welcome.
from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I have some questions for the taxpayer. First, I'll start by sympathizing with experience with HDLC. I understand that, but be that as it may, with these exhibits, it's my appreciation that the valuation date for this assessment is January 1 of 2023. So you presented pictures from August 7th of 2012 with the house in totality. Then I believe you stated that the second picture is from the summer of 2023, which is when certainly the renovation, albeit eventually a demolition, occurred. Is that correct? That your second picture was from summer of 2023?
Yes, sir, that's correct, with respect to the timeline.
And then the ongoing pictures are from when? There are no dates assigned to that.
They were taken at the same time.
All from the summer of 2023, this construction was happening.
Yes, that's my recollection. But Commissioner Romick, if I may, the first photograph, which shows the house in 2012, was only sort of a depiction of what the house looked like in 2021 at the time of John Laborde's death, and 2022 when the house was purchased by his son, Peter Laborde. So that's strictly for illustrative purposes. But I also appreciate your comment with respect to January 1, 2023. But if a house burned down or if a house was demolished, it wouldn't stay on the tax roll. And what the assessor's office is doing and what the staff appraiser is doing is they're not doing a retrospective appraisal back to the tax lien date for the year in question. What they're doing is they're going back before that, or they're actually going forward. And they're not doing a retrospective, they're doing a prospective appraisal as of a future moment in time.
So let me ask another question. As I appreciate, this was previously appealed and there was a settlement for the $1,596,800 you stated.
Yes, we
And
appealed it in 2024 when Peter paid roughly 1.6 million for it, and they were assessing it for almost 2.1.
Right, so that was for the 22 valuation date, 1/1 of 22, you were appealing that. Also acknowledging that he purchased the home from his siblings for close to 1.7 million.
Approximately.
It's a house that he grew up in, but didn't understand the condition of the house.
Well, he hadn't lived in it in a very long time. Peter is my age. He's 70 years old, and he hadn't lived there since high school. And his father lived there in most of his adult life.
So construction is now complete and he's living in it?
No, sir. Construction's not complete, and they don't anticipate that the construction will be complete until January of 26.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions by the commission?
I have one, Mr. Chairman. This is for Mr. Russell. You had mentioned that the house was actually raised and the second level was, the basement was taken away, correct?
It was, yes.
Okay, so the total square footage of the house went down tremendously. Am I correct in saying that?
It did. And then the current square footage on our system represents the accurate square footage currently now.
Okay, that's on the system now.
Yes.
Okay,
And I believe it's the same square footage that your staff did when they measured the property as well.
okay. Thank you, Russ.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Mr. Alvarez. So the amount that Board of Review, this was adjusted from a previous assessment and agreed to of the 1596. That is your prayer?
I yes, sir, that is our prayer.
And Mr. Laverne, the condition of the house in your assessment was what?
It was granted a fair condition due to the ongoing construction.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I move to, for the total value of $1,596,000 with land at $681,000, improvements at $915,000, taking into consideration the LTC staff appraisal and the condition assigned.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Okay, next we have the appeal of 840 Camp LLC, docket number 24221-71063, and that's item D on the agenda.
Yes, I do.
So Robertson.
Sorry, we're actually going to take up item E on the agenda. This appeal of Benin Land Limited, docket number 24221-71068.
Stephen Parker on behalf of the administrators of the Tulane Educational Fund and Tulane University. Tulane University is the fee simple owner of the property in question, which they acquired from Benin Land Limited as part of an assemblage of parking lots in the neighborhood. Tulane University hopes to be the major tenant in the Charity Hospital redevelopment in the medical district along Tulane Avenue, and they have been assembling properties for several years now. This building in particular is not income producing, and therefore it should be marked exempt. Now, the surface lots, which are not improved, are income producing. But this building, which flooded out in Katrina, as did Charity Hospital, as did Tulane University Hospital and Clinic, and all the other properties in the neighborhood, this property flooded out and it never came back. And Tulane's intention is to demolish the property. They have yet to do so. They've been repainting it regularly. They recently paid a $6,300 lien that the city put on the property because of its condition, which was actually assessed prior to the time that they bought it, but they paid it nonetheless. But this appeal was two-pronged. It was as to value, and it was also a procedural appeal. Procedural due to the fact that the assessor's office simply did not follow Regulation 3509, Regulation 3511, which specifically states that any and all property owned by the administrators of the Tulane Educational Fund that is not income producing or even if it is income producing, that it be marked exempt. And it was not, and it should have been. And I've since had this conversation on other parcels and other properties with Ms. Ross in the assessor's office. And I think that we've been making progress, but Tulane University provides health services and clinic services to the city of New Orleans. And they were anxious to get this cleaned up because every year the university has to obtain a tax clearance form, which states that they have paid their taxes and they don't own the city. They don't owe the city of New Orleans any money. And so I know that the clearance form got hung up because of this one property. But I am asking the commission, and we are asking the commission to mark this property exempt as it should have been last year. And I actually brought this to the attention of the person in the exemption department within the assessor's office, but it never got done. I believe I've had this conversation with Ms. Ross recently in the last several weeks, and I don't know whether or not she initiated a change order to exempt the property.
New Orleans Assessor's Office. Drew, and be clear, are we going to rule on the question of exempt, or we're going to rule on the value of the appeal that's been submitted to us?
So Tulane presents kind of a strange beast that y'all haven't had to deal with. You have approved the Tulane allocation, so maybe you have some understanding. There was litigation where Tulane was fighting for exempt status. The Supreme Court granted exempt status. The commission actually has a regulation. That's what Mr. Parker is referencing, that was adopted in the wake of that litigation. Tulane also benefits from an exemption that was holdover from the prior constitution. But the regulation does specifically say that non-income producing property owned by Tulane is not subject to ad valorem taxation. Feels like a legal issue, but because this is specifically a regulation that you've adopted, you could enforce your regulation and recognize that the property would be tax exempt.
So, Mr. Amaret?
So, as far as exemption, our office is only talking about the specific value of the property. I believe the tax emissions staff appraisal came in at 177,600. Our own appraisal came in at 179. I offered to the taxpayer to settle the value at the tax emission appraisal at 177,600 due to the condition of the property. As far as exemption, it's above my pay grade. I'm not here to talk about exemptions or legal issues. I'm only here to talk about value. And whether you exempt the taxable assessment, that's a whole nother matter. As far as the actual value to put on the tax roll, we want the tax commission to either go with our value 179 or the tax commission's staff appraisal 177,600. We're talking about a $1,400 difference between the two values, which is a separate matter as far as what's on the assessment rolls. But as far as the tax rolls are concerned, there is a value that has to go on it. You can't put a value of 0. So we're asking for one of those two values.
Okay, we'll hear from Joshua and then we'll circle back. I'm going to speak for myself. I think we should rule on the value issue first. And if the commission decides it wants to take up the exempt issue, we can do that after. But I think the value is separate of the exemption issue. So we'll hear from Cody or Josh. Cody.
Yes, sir. Cody Lowry, Louisiana Tax Commission. I personally appraised the property at 242 South Robertson Street. Using a market approach, we came in at a total value of $177,600 with an undisputed land value of $76,800 and the improvements valued at $100,800.
Thank you, Cody. Okay, questions from the commission on the value first.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for the taxpayer. So you have as I appreciate it, you are requesting a value. There's undisputed land of 76,800 and our records show an improvement value of 33,600.
Right. We believe that a value of $10 a square foot on a shell building, which is not in commerce and which is awaiting demolition is far more reasonable than the assessor's building rate of $40 per square. Now, at the same time that the assessor is assessing this dead property for $40 a square foot, he's assessing the Plaza Tower building for 9 cents a square foot. Those aren't the taxes. That's the value of the building, Plaza Tower, which he's got a $50,000 value on that. Now, as recently as I believe last week, the same developer that redeveloped Tivoli Place into senior housing, which is near Lee Circle for those people who aren't familiar with it, he has indicated that there's a plan to redevelop the Plaza Tower building for $300 million and to create 250 apartments for elder care. But that building's on for $9 cents a square foot. 1010 Common Street's currently in the process of being renovated and redeveloped. And if you don't give any value to the 950 car garage, that building's on for $8.71 per square. And so I'm confused why he would put a value on this building of $40 a square foot. And I'm also confused by the staff appraisal as well.
And Mr. Lowry, just to confirm, your appraisal is using a sales approach.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
If I may, Commissioner Romig, just to clarify the taxpayers' confusion, Plaza Tower is a substantial square footage, and as everyone who has any experience with real estate knows, the more square footage you have, the less price per square foot that you have. So this property being on at $40 a square foot would be in the same ballpark as Plaza Tower being at 9 cents a square foot due to the extreme difference of square footages. And just to also point out, both the tax commission staff appraisal and the assessor's office appraisal came in with a out of commerce building, because it can clearly be seen that the property is out of commerce, and the $40 a square foot is an out of commerce value for something of this size. So it's all in this, it's all in the same ballpark. So I hope that addresses Mr. Parker's confusion.
Additional questions from the commission? Do I hear a motion on the value?
Mr. Chair, I call for a motion on the value of the city of New Orleans agreeing with the LTC staff appraisal for a total of $177,600. That's $76,800 of land, $100,800 of improvements, total of $177,600.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion setting the value is adopted. Is it the wishes of the commission to discuss whether it's exempt or not exempt?
Not from my standpoint. I don't want to get into that gray area.
So we're not gonna, with the consensus of the commission, we're not gonna address the issue, or we're not gonna take up the issue of whether it should be property exempt or not.
May I ask you a question, sir? If it's the responsibility of the assessor's office to mark a property exempt and they fail to do so, does the tax commission have any authority to do so?
We have the authority to enforce the rule that we have, but that's not the appeal that's in front of us today. The information we have in front of us today deals with the value of the property. It doesn't deal with it being exempt, so.
Yeah, so here's what I would say about the two-lane complication. Our regulations primarily deal with the allocation of two lanes $5 million exemption. That's a holdover from the 1899 Constitution. But the regulations do contemplate that two lanes non-income producing property should be treated as tax exempt, because two lanes successfully litigated that issue against the assessor back in the 90s, I guess against the assessors in the 90s. It feels like a legal issue. I don't think Two Lane has ever brought an appeal before you, at least not in the 10 years that I've been representing the tax commission, asking the commission to enforce 3509 to declare a property to be tax exempt. It feels like a legal issue, but it is specifically in our rules and regulations. So Chairman, I think it's your prerogative if you would rather kind of pre-termit that issue and kick that to judicial review and let a court decide. I think that is well within your discretion. But it is in our rules and regs, unlike some of the other legal issues that I would say we do not have jurisdiction or authority to consider.
Once again, from my perspective is today we address the value, which is what we were asked to do through this appeal. The issue of whether it should be exempt or not exempt, the issue that it's not in commercial use or not, is not what was before us today. So we're not going to hear that. We're not going to hear that issue.
All right, the next appeal we'll take up is the appeal of 840 Camp LLC, docket number 24221711063.
Oh, that's fine. I appreciate the extra few minutes. Thank you very much. And I have two properties. Okay, and we want to talk about Can Street first. Okay, Patrick Quinn, and I'm a member of the LLC that owns this property at 842 Camp. This is a property that my sons and I bought over 10 years ago for $500,000. And the reason we bought it so cheap is because it is a 4,000 square foot, 2-bedroom condo in the warehouse district. And there's really no demand for something that big. As Mr. Almro just said less than 5 minutes ago, as the square footage gets bigger, it's worth less. And that concept was agreed to by the assessor's office and the board of review and this panel in the past. Like every time we bring up that it's too big for where it's supposed to be, people understood that and we got a lower value, but all of a sudden the last cycle, it jumped way up. And that argument didn't seem to hold water. To compound things, we bought it for the purpose of short-term rental, to use it for short-term rental. And 3 years ago, the city took our license away. And we have been trying to get it back, but at this point, I think it's hopeless. It's been 3 years and we haven't been able to talk them into giving us our license back. Oh, I'm sorry, did I start all over? Oh, good. So we're kind of in a jam. We've got the property and we can't use it for short-term rental. And marketable is not, it's just not, people aren't looking for a 4,000 square foot condo with 2 bedrooms in that location on Camp Street. And that's one more small thing I want to say, just to make sure that, so no misunderstanding. I had submitted pictures before, and I think Mr. Almro thought I was sending pictures of a different building and trying to pull a switch, but what I was doing was showing the building across the street and the building next door. I wasn't trying to imply that the pictures were our building. They were there just to show the condition. It was the Ozanam Inn, which used to be a housing for people who were down on the luck, and now it's closed and it's just sitting vacant across the street. But basically, we feel like the value is around 800,000, which is what this group and the Board of Review agreed to several times over the last few years. And now that we have no income coming in, I don't know what it's worth, but we only bought it to do short-term rental. So if happy to answer any questions. If there's any.
Do we have any questions for the taxpayer?
Not at the moment.
Mr. Alvarez?
Thank you, sir. So I'll try to keep this short as I can. This was a repeat of a appeal from last year. Last year, this was 23-22171-053. Believe it was heard a couple of months ago. The commission rendered a decision for $1.2 million. We're asking the commission uphold the decision from a couple of months ago for the $1.2 million. That would be 351, let's see, it's 351,500 for the land. 200, I'm sorry. I'm gonna do the math real quick. 848,800 for the building for a total fair market value of the 1.2 million that was rendered for 2024. Everything else is the same. All of our exhibits were the same appraisal. And I don't think anything has significantly changed to change the commission's decision from a couple months ago.
Okay, thank you, Russell. We'll hear from George Wallace.
Yes, sir. George Wallace, Louisiana Tax Commission. As Russell said, this is a repeat appeal. My value hasn't changed since the previous appraisal. The total value is 900,000, 351,200 for the land, 548,800 for the improvements.
Okay. Questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
May I say one thing? Just to clarify, the reason we filed the appeal is because we hadn't had the hearing. In other words, we filed the appeal for this one before we were able to have the hearing. Part of that was my fault because I had got sick and had to postpone it. But that's why we had filed the appeal, because we hadn't had the hearing yet and we didn't know what to do. I just wanted to clarify.
Mr.
Do I
Chair, I have
hear-
a question for the taxpayer. I'm sorry. You had represented something about the Board of Review accepting 800,000?
Yes, sir.
When was that?
It was probably the cycle 2016, I'm going to guess. That cycle before 2019, I'm sorry, 2019. 2019. The board, the people at Delgado, that's what I'm referring to. Is that what you
Understood.
call it? I'm calling that right. Just make sure. I'm
The
using
Board
right
of Review
terminology.
value, that's
Right.
which at present they're showing at at least per our records, at 1,410,000.
That was for the lien date of 1/1/2019. It was,
And that was when we went to City Park.
That's correct.
They gave us 6 minutes to do our case. They had so many appeals that they didn't even really have time to discuss it with us.
I have one question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Russell,
Okay.
could you run
Yes.
back through the land and improvements and the total for us one more time so we can all be correct on that
Yes,
number?
sir. It was land at 351,200, building at 848,800 for a total fair market value of 1.2 million.
Additional questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, sorry about that, Kevin. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to set the value at 1.2 million. That's 351,200 for the land, an improvement value of 848,800.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of Decatur Hotel Corporation, docket number 2422172-031. And I do want to make a mention that Mr. Danny Blanchard will be the tax commission appraiser for this appeal.
Okay. Would you? Sure, thank you. And once again, the same situation. We had filed an appeal for the previous year, and then the time limit was up to file the next appeal, and we hadn't had the hearing yet. So that's why we went ahead and filed the appeal. But I'm kind of glad we did, because I think I understand the process better since I was able to come here one time before. And I could probably spend a lot of time talking about the issues and the market of how things are rough in hotel business now. I thought I'd just hit a couple of quick highlights. From 22 to 23 to 24, our RevPAR, which is the combination of occupancy and average rate together, went down 7% from 22 to 23, went down another 3% from 23 to 24 for a total of 10%. Our insurance costs in that same period went up 30% and 5% for a total of 35%. Our property taxes, because of this increase, went up 59%. And so when you put all that together, when your income is going down by 10% and your expenses are going up by a much larger number, we're getting squeezed pretty bad, and was hoping we could adjust the value even a little bit would be helpful. Anything we could do would be helpful, because the insurance is really tough, and the customers the business has just slowed down, and it seems to be 25, other than the Super Bowl, is heading the same direction.
Thank you. We'll hear from the
Thank
City of
you.
New Orleans Assessors Office.
Yes. So same situation. This is a repeat of 23-22172-064 that was heard at the same time. The commission ruled at 2.860, I believe. That's the same value the board reviews at. We're asking to reaffirm that value. That's right in line with the commission's appraisal.
No,
Okay. Thank you, Russell. We'll hear from Danny Blanchard, the LTC appraiser.
Good morning, Commissioners. Danny Blanchard, appraiser for the Louisiana Tax Commission. Pretty straightforward appraisal. This is a properties identified at 131 Decatur Street. It's the property is a 4,686 square foot interior site that's improved with a 62 room limited service lodging facility. Of note, what's being appraised at the moment is 34 rooms because of the way the tax bill is divided. Nevertheless, we relied heavily on the host report, employed the income approach. No sales were found that were comparable to this property, so we relied solely on the income approach. That led us to a value, rounded value of $2,841,000, which has an allocation of $328,000 undisputed land value and $2,513,000 improvement value.
Thank you, Danny. Questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, for Mr. Almaraz, just please confirm the methodology. I assume it's income as well, and what was the source of your data for coming up with your appraisal?
Yes. So the valuation that was done for our office was done as income as well. We do not use host. Normally we'll use CoStar. We'll use actuals from the taxpayer. We don't necessarily employ a host. We have TREP and we have CoStar, which is the other two companies.
Thank you.
Additional?
I think there's a discrepancy. You did lower it a little bit last time I was here, so the board review would have been a different number.
So what we have is 2,860,000, which I believe was the ruling of the commission a couple months ago. No,
I think
2.7.
I think you lowered it. You did lower it a little bit, like 6%.
Okay.
On it
Yeah.
previously.
So we're
Yeah, I was just telling Mr. Almaraz that James McKee testified on behalf of the assessor's office in connection with the previous tax year, and he had agreed to a value of recommended a value of 2.7 million, which this commission adopted back in March.
I will.
Correct. land was 328,000.
Okay.
Improvements were 2,372,000 for a total value of 2.7.
I stand corrected. My apologies. I thought it was the 2.7. So
That's okay.
We know it was an accident, Russell. It's okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions from the commission?
Mr. Quinn, is
Yes,
that in accordance with what you had? The 2.7?
It was 6%, and that sounds like, in my head, that sounds right. And I appreciate him making that correction. I think that's right. I can do a real quick math and see, just. Okay, well then I'm good with that, if that's what.
Any additional questions from the commission? If not, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to assess a total value of 2,700,000, land at 328,000, improvements at 2,372,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're moving to the top of our agenda to item A, the appeal of Hertz Texaco Center LLC, docket number 24221711045. And I believe we have a consent agreement.
Thank you. Good morning, Commission members. My name is Carl Kehoe, representing the owners, and we've had a discussion with the assessor's office and have come to an agreeable value. And should I just read that into the record and the assessor's office can confirm it? This is for the docket that was just read, which is 400 Porger Street, land unchanged at $5,839,700, building $32,990,300 for a total value of $38,830,000.
yes. Yes, sir. I believe that was our prayer.
Okay. Okay, we have a consent agreement between the taxpayer and the City of New Orleans Assessor's Office. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the agreement between the tax assessor and the taxpayer.
Is there any discussion on the? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of Hertz 909 Portras LLC, docket number 24221711046, and Mr. Randy will be testifying as the tax commission appraiser.
Again, Carl Kehoe representing the owners. This is one that was heard in March, and we are agreeing to have that value again reinstated for this year. That total value is $36,500,000. The land unchanged at $3,167,700. The building $33,332,300.
City of New Orleans agrees with those figures?
Yes, sir. We're asking the commission to affirm its value from a couple months ago.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the value between the tax commissioner and the assessor's office at that value.
And which was previously ruled by this commission at that value.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion. Any discussion on that motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Okay, next we have the appeal of Portras Center LLC, docket number 24221711047.
Again, good morning, Commission members. My name is Carl Kehoe, representing the owners. We have also, for this one, come to a discussion with the assessor's office and come to an agreement for the value. And I'll just read that in for the record. The total value, $29,878,000. The land unchanged, $4,167,300. The building, $25,710,700.
Yes, sir. We're asking the commission to, yes.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? To clarify, value that the LTC staff approved minutes, so we're going through these quickly, but I want to recognize the efforts from the LTC appraisers to help us set these values that both the taxpayer and the city of New Orleans agree with. So great work on that one, Luke. Hearing no objection to the motion, motion is adopted.
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the total value of 29,878,000 land at 4,167,300. Improvements 25,710,700.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Romig was moving a little too quickly. So we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Motion is adopted.
Okay, next we have the appeal of Kraus Garage LLC, docket number 24221720011. And again, Mr. Danny Blanchard will be testifying on the behalf of Mr. Mark.
Good morning, Commission members. Carl Kehoe, representing the owners, Kraus Garage LLC. We've also come to an agreement with the assessor's office for a value that is also very close to the LTC appraisal. We've come to a settlement agreement of $1,150,000 total, with the land being unchanged, $691,200, the building $458,800.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
The chair, I call a motion to accept the value of $1,150,000, which is total of $691,200 of land, improvements of $458,800, total $1,150,000.
Okay, I have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you, Commission members. Thank you.
Okay, and our final appeal of the morning is the appeal of Rodrigue Realty LLC, docket number 24221720027. Don't see any taxpayers for this one.
New Orleans Assessor's Office?
Yes, good morning. This is a weird one. The commission heard this. They made a ruling for 515,000 total value. It's part of a condominium regime. We're just asking the commission to reaffirm the value that was ruled on a couple months ago.
Mr. Hoffman, did we ruled on?
Yeah, because this is the one where we had a settlement agreement with the taxpayer and then it was the pro rata breakout. That's why I said it's a weird one, because it was a settlement of two separate properties and there was a confusion as to how they split out. I believe Mr. Frazier made the ruling.
515 total.
Thank you.
488,300 on the improvements.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Do I hear a motion by the committee? Any questions from the commission? If not, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the parish assessors rate at land for 26,700, improvements at 488,300, for a total of 515,000.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Are there any other matters to come before the commission today? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
The chair, call for a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. We are adjourned at 10:18.